Welcome for a special edition of the HNL Tonight Show with your hockey coach, Gold Coach FRENCHY. Tonight, guys, we have a special guest. 15 years ago, Summit Series, 1972. He knows about everything, the 8 game, the 24 period, the 480 minutes from the beginning to the end. You're going to enjoy this person. I'll be honest with you, I'm so impressed when I spoke to him. Please welcome for the first time inside the Hockey Nation Live show, the man of the everyone knows, Mr. Liam Maguire.
That's good intro, Coach FRENCHY. Thank you very much, my friend. Thank you very much. 28,800 seconds.
Here we go. I forgot the second, by the way, but I've never been good in maths, by the way. So that's the reason why I did not go all the way there. But listen, guy, I just want to let you know, Mr. Liam, we really appreciate your time you give to us for the Hockey Nation Live show family. And I can't wait to have all the comments for everyone to go to watching this video. And I just want to say to you, thanks so much for your time today.
Pleasure, my friend.
You know, we like to talk a little bit more about your bio and a little bit your resume. And I pick up a couple of information about you, and maybe you can tell us a little bit more about, honestly, where you've been. But I know you did very good on the graduate for Seneca, wrote 4 books. You host Trivia Hockey. You may be the best champion of the Trivia Hockey in Canada. What I heard in 1981. I could be wrong with year, but you're going to tell us. And historian, writer, involved with media since many years ago and over, like, I'm sure 40 years. And tell us a little bit more, and that'd be great to hear more from you.
Oh, you pretty much covered it all off there, my friend. That's, Seneca grad, class of 83. And I started doing radio in 1981, where I was paid to go on the air anyway. And I've written 4 books, so you got all that right. I bill myself as the world's #1 NHL historian, trivia expert, and I really just try and have a lot of fun with it. And I've been able to carve out a living out of it to a degree. It was pretty tough during COVID, I can tell you. There was no work then.
Yep.
But things are back, and we're doing very well right now. So hoping to keep it going. But you pretty much covered it all off there. You know, I just put it all together. I created something out of nothing, really. Nobody had ever done what I do that actually makes a living out of it. I've added some things. I've become an auctioneer. Had a lot of charity events as well. I can do auctions, and as well as just talking hockey and doing the trivia and the history, I can also MC and host events. So it's become sort of a one-stop shop, if you will, if you hire Liam Maguire for an event.
That's awesome. A lot of people know you, like you said, like trivia hockey. You have someone in French and province of Quebec, like 30 years ago. I think he was really good on trivia. I don't know. I cannot remember his last name. But maybe do you know him or not?
Yeah, Jerry Rochon.
There we go. Did you ever compete with him or?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Jerry. So I heard about Jerry, and I was trying to, of course, this is before the internet, so I couldn't find him. And then I got a call saying that he was on CBC with Peter Zosky, one of the most famous radio hosts in Canada for decades. And I got the very tail end of the show. And literally the last 2 minutes. And I listened to it. So I didn't really hear any of his work, but I phoned the show and I introduced myself and I said, look, I've been trying to get a hold of this guy for 6 months. Everybody tells me he's all that. So him and I got to chat, we got to get this on. And so they gave me his number and I phoned him at home. in Trois-Rivières. And he answered the phone, and I said, "Is this Jerry Rochon?" And he said, "Yes." I said, "This is Liam Maguire." And it was like dead silence on the other end. And then he said, "I knew I was going to get this call eventually." So I said, "Buddy, we're going to have to sit down here. There's only room for one of us at the top." And he said, "Yeah, let's do it." So he came to Ottawa. I had a radio show in Ottawa at the time.
Wow.
On Friday nights on a radio station called CFRA. And he came in studio with me for 2 hours and we set up a contest. And the way we did it was he could ask me a question.
Yep.
And I would ask him a question. And then we would take a question from the callers. And then, so if I asked him who was on the punchline in Montreal, and he said Elmer Locke and Rocket Richard, and he forgot Toe Blake, then he would get 2 out of 3 on that question. And, so the questions would be graded according to how many separate answers there were to the question. So it was a 2-part, 3-part, 4-part, what have you. Then the answer was out of that, whatever you got. And then we tabulated it at the end. And look, he's really, really good. Really good. And so big deal. So I beat him that night. But I'll tell you what happened. This guy is a prince of a man. And I was married at the time, just recently married. And he came to our house for dinner. He brought my wife a bottle of wine. We sat down. We had a fabulous dinner. I drove him back to his hotel. The next day, him and I went to the library together, and we compared research techniques. What did he do versus what I do to try and become really good at our craft. And I stayed in touch with him on and off over the next few years, but I have not talked to him in a long time. He's a little bit older than me.
Yeah. And
he also knows NASCAR racing very well. And he also is an expert on the JFK assassination.
Wow.
He knows everything about the John F. Kennedy assassination, all of the ins and outs and everything else. He has a number of other interests that he's really, really, really on top of. And
that's
a prince
awesome.
of a man. But yeah, Jerry was really good. But nobody has done what I do. Like, I've traveled the country coast to coast for 40 years.
Wow.
Standing on a stage, taking on everybody all across this country. Nobody's done that. He didn't do it. Nobody's done it. And that's one thing this is what I've done to make a living. This is how I've tried to make a living.
That's really unique as a job to do that. I do this for over 3 years, and we create a show where at the end we call the FRENCHY quiz, and we ask always 5 questions. I'm not going to ask questions tonight, but people love it. It's all about compete, right? You try to beat someone, but at the end of the day, if you have a couple of tips to someone learning about the history, I'll be honest with you, for many years I collect the record book of NHL, the 300, 400 page year after year. And that's what I learned, the record, the stat, everything like that. I'm not like you, but I know a little bit more. But at the end of the day, if you have some tip for the new generation or the people who want to know more about hockey or whatever it is, to become maybe more knowledge about the history in NHL, what would be your tip?
My tips would be, I'll give you an example. I see, obviously, you're a Montreal Canadian fan, as am I. So who was your favorite player growing up?
Guy Lafleur.
Okay, so right away, what I do is you've given me what I call the top of the umbrella, okay? So you give me the name Guy Lafleur. So from Guy Lafleur, you go, okay, drafted first overall in 1971. Well, how did Montreal get the pick? That's a whole series of trivia questions, right? From the trade that they made with the California Seals on May 22nd, 1970, to the secondary trade they had to make with the Los Angeles Kings on January 26, 1971, when they shipped off Ralph Backstrom to secure the pick. Then they draft Lafleur number 1. Lafleur takes number 10. He plays his first season at center. He plays his first 3 years wearing a helmet. He scores 29 goals, 28 goals, 21 goals, all wearing a helmet. Takes the helmet off. He scores 50 goals for the first time. He becomes the first player in NHL history to record 50 goals in 6 consecutive seasons. He becomes the second player in NHL history to record 100 points for 6 consecutive seasons, next to Bobby Orr. He wins the Art Ross Trophy 3 times. He wins the Hart Trophy. He wins the Lester B. Pearson, which is now the Ted Lindsay. He's a 5-time Stanley Cup winner. Then you get into some of his singular goals. His first playoff hat trick against the Sabres Game 3, semifinals, Buffalo Sabres, Saturday night, May 1st, 1975. Final score 7-0. Then you get into the greatest game he ever played by his own admission. Thursday night, May 10th, 1979, beat the Boston Bruins in overtime 5-4. He tied the goal on the too many men on the ice penalty. And that gets into, well, who drew the penalty? Stan Jonathan. Who served the penalty? Peter McNabb. Who assisted the goal? Jacques Lemaire. Who was the goaltender? Gilles Gilbert. Who scored the winner in overtime? Yvon Lambert. On and on. How much longer did he play with the Habs? When did he come back with the New York Rangers? How many seasons with the Nordiques? Who were number 10 on Montreal before Guy Lafleur? Frank Mahovlich for one game. What were the details? All of that is the rest of the umbrella because you gave me Guy Lafleur. So what I would say to anybody who's trying to study to memorize is use an association technique to build underneath the top of the umbrella.
So you start with a subject, you go all the way to the top, to the bottom. It's funny because I know a lot, but I would never mention the date. I would never tell you May 18, everything like that. I know he scored his 1,000 point against the Winnipeg Jets, but I would not tell you exactly the night, the date, everything you know. Oh my God, you're impressing me a lot right away at the beginning. So that's really amazing about this. We want to talk more about the Summit Series 1972. And like I said, everything happening about this. You make some connection. And one of the people was watching this video, it would be 50 years ago with this happening. Like many Canadian born, we always remember where you at that day at the game number 8. But let's rewind from the beginning and then finishing the show with the last game and, of course, the Paul Anderson, everything like that. So maybe tell a little bit more about your Summit Series 1972.
Well, I'll give you the Coles Note version, I guess, because I think most people probably even watching your show, Coach Frenchy, have a pretty good working knowledge of what went down. It took a couple of years of organizing for the series to come to fruition. 4 games in Canada, 4 in Russia. Everybody and their brother thought we would absolutely smoke them all 8 games. And then on Saturday night, September 2nd, 1972, the entire hockey world was absolutely stunned and turned on its ear. So with the loss in game 1, 7-3, everything changed. Everything changed that night, really, in hockey as we knew it, I think. I was a 13-year-old boy. I watched it at home where I grew up on the Cars Road, not too far from where I am right now, in fact. My family in what we called our back kitchen of our house. And it was a Saturday night. School started that Tuesday. It was just a shocking loss. On the Monday, on Labor Day Monday, we went to Toronto and won game 2, 4-1. My favorite player of all time, Yvon Cornway, scored a spectacular goal, which turned out to be the game winner. And Pete Mahovlich, who was also with the Habs at that time, scored an unbelievable shorthanded goal. His brother Frank, who was also with the Montreal Canadiens, scored that game as well. And we won. 2 nights later in Winnipeg, we tied 4-4. And then 2 nights later, the Friday night, September 8th in Vancouver, we lose. Just a terrible, terrible game. Terrible first period. We never recovered, and we lost. And we had the daunting task of trying to come back from that. And what a lot of people don't know is that Team Canada traveled to Sweden before they went to Moscow to complete the series. And they were in Sweden for about 10 days. And they played 2 games against the Swedish national team. We played with a pretty strong lineup. Our first game, we beat them 4-1 relatively easily. In the second game, we went with pretty much all the guys who were going to see little or no action against the Russians. And we had a much tougher time of it, and we tied 4-4. But the game was vicious. It was just a ton of stick work. There was a lot of blood on the ice. And we got called hooligans, and the guys just really started to rally around themselves. Finally, I would say, Coach Frenchy, that for the first time, it wasn't Brad Park of the New York Rangers and Paul Henderson of the Toronto Maple Leafs and Yvon Cornway of the Montreal Canadiens and Phil Esposito of the Boston Bruins and Pat Stapleton of the Chicago Blackhawks and so on. They really started to be a team of Canadians. And they really started to say, hey, look, we're in this. The media hate us. Fans are saying we're rough, whatever. Our friends back home in Vancouver booed us off the ice. Let's just go get it done for ourselves. Let's play for ourselves. And they went to Moscow, and they lost game 1. They blew a 4-1 lead, if you can believe it, in the third period. And then after that, we didn't lose another game. We won game 6, game 7, game 8, all by 1 goal. And the same guy got the winner in all 3 games, Paul Henderson. And he got the winner in game 7 with 2:06 to play on one of the nicest goals you'll see in the history of hockey. And then he got the winner of the series in game 8 with 34 seconds to play. A game, by the way, in which the Russians had 4 leads. They had 4 leads in that game, including 5-3 after 2 periods. And we still came back to win. So it was an emotional roller coaster of a month that took this entire country of Canada, and not just us. There were 16 million Canadians out of 22 million in 1972 that watched Game 8. There were 150 million Russians that watched Game 8, and numerous other Swedes and Finns and Czechs. It was a global. It had become a global, as much as it could be by 1972 standards, a global sport, a global event to be watched, and it was life altering for me. I can tell you that. As a 13-year-old boy in grade 8, my elementary school in the village of Manotick, St. Leonard's, it was a monumental event. There were TVs in our gym and most classrooms, and pretty much everybody that was alive remembers where they were when that happened. It was that significant in Canadian history.
You're absolutely right. I was in the glass room. Of course, me too. I'm just behind you a little bit. But look, this changed a lot for everything. What changed for you, the series and the direction? At 13 years old, when did you starting to become involved with hockey and want to go that direction and become who you are today? But honestly, start at some point during your life. And what maybe turn you to become? I think, of course, you said earlier you was a Montreal Canadian fans earlier age, right?
Yes. I was actually born in Montreal.
Okay.
And I lived the first 7 years and a couple months of my life in the province of Quebec. My mother is from a little village called Stoneham, north of Quebec City. Beautiful, beautiful little village called Stoneham. And we lived there for 4 years.
Oh, wow.
And so I was 7 when we moved here. The Canadians, I was starting to watch. Dad, my late father would let me watch a couple minutes of the first period. The broadcast didn't start till 8:30 in those days. The first period was already underway. And on the Saturday night, Dad would let me watch the end of the first period. Then I have to go to bed. So I was a Montreal fan by the time I came here, and they were the only team till the Senators came back. And look, I'm a pretty loyal guy, so I wasn't jumping ship. I stayed with the Habs. In 1972, the way that series unfolded, for us to win Game 6, okay, we get a win. We still have the chances of winning the series were so remote. Then on the Tuesday, we win Game 7. We score with 2 minutes and 6 seconds to play. Now Game 8 means something. Then we come back. You have to understand how that game went. We're down the entire game. We're down the entire game until 12 minutes to go in the third period when Yvan Cournoyer tied it at 5. And then the goal doesn't go on. Look, anybody watching this show right now, okay? If I don't know who you have for viewers, listeners, what have you. But I defy anybody to tell me that you've ever seen a moment in sports like what happened when Yvan Cournoyer scores to tie Game 5. Tie Game 8 5-all. And the goal light doesn't go on. And Alan Eagleson gets out of his seat and goes down to confront the goal judge. He's in the stands. And the entire arena is lined with the Russian army. They've lined the entire arena. It's the way it was. It's 1972. This is communism. That's the way it was.
Yep.
And they grab Eagleson. And they're trying to drag him out of the arena. This is all on video.
Wow.
And the Team Canada players cleared their benches. And Pete Mahovlich and Gary Bergman, the late Gary Bergman,
Yep.
went over the boards, and they're swinging their sticks at the Russian military who are carrying guns. Now, I don't know about you, Coach Frenchy. You say you're not that much younger than me, so you've probably seen a lot. I've never seen anything like that in sports.
You're right.
We come back to win that thing with 34 seconds to go. I don't know how that doesn't make an impression on somebody, especially 13. 13's 12, 13, 14. Those years are pretty formative in a person's life. And, that season, Team Canada comes back. The Canadians lost 10 games that year in the regular season. They win the Stanley Cup. Yvon Cornway wins the Conn Smythe Trophy. My season started with the Summit Series. It ended with Montreal winning the Stanley Cup. I just became an absolute fanatic. I already was, but I think I ratcheted it up a level. And I just wanted to know everything about the Habs and everything about hockey. And a few years later, I started to phone the head statistician in Montreal. His name was Ron Andrews. He worked at the NHL head office in Montreal. And I tell him, I said, I'm coming for your job, Mr. Andrews. I'm coming for your job. I was 15 years old. I used to phone him on Friday afternoons from a payphone just down the road from our high school. I could get 3 minutes airtime on the payphone for 75 cents. So I would put in 3 quarters and I would talk to him every Friday for 3 minutes.
Unbelievable.
It's ridiculous when I think of it now. But anyway, that's what I did. And just so 72 and the Habs and, had a big impact on my life. Plus, I played the game too. I played every chance I got. I played in leagues. I played competitively till I was 24. I played at Seneca College, the college you said I graduated from. I played there. I was captain of our intramural team. I played in a tournament with our varsity team. I played men's leagues till I was in my 40 years old. It's been my life, hockey. It's been my life.
Unbelievable. You became really involved with the media, sport, cover the hockey, everything like this. But then you start to have some kind of relationship with players playing at Team Canada and NHL. I know I saw all kind of the picture and you meet each one of them. Maybe talk a bit more story. Maybe not many knows about the Team Canada and the Super Summit series. Fun players, maybe a player you talked about story we never heard.
Boy, just about everything has probably been documented at this point. There's not too much. Some of the stuff the players keep to themselves, about Sweden in particular. As I told you earlier there, Coach Frenchy, Sweden was a really unifying 10 or 12 days for them, not just because of what happened on the ice in those 2 games, but off the ice. A couple things that don't get talked about very often is, and this actually involves a former Montreal Canadian and a very dear friend of mine. He's still alive, Guy Lapointe.
Yep.
Guy Lapointe's first child was born when he was in Sweden.
Wow.
And you can imagine, I'm a parent. I'm assuming you may be as well. I think anybody who's a parent, that's a big, big moment in your life. And he was overseas. His wife's back in Montreal giving birth to their first child. So they phoned the hotel in Sweden and said, your wife's going to give birth probably in the next hour. So he went around and he got a box of cigars and they got a case of beer and he got every single guy on the team. And they went outside to the hotel to this park and they told the media liaison there for Team Canada, when you get the call that I'm a dad, we're outside having a drink and a cigar. So he came out and he said, Guy, you're a dad. And so everybody celebrated and hugged him and everything, and they had a drink, you don't think that would bring a group together? Absolutely it would, right? Just picture if that was you or me.
Yep. Guys
that were his sworn enemies on the ice for the last 3-4 years in the NHL were now hugging him like he was a brother, And they all started going out together to these bars. And some of these bars, Coach Frenchy, some of them were so poor that the women couldn't afford clothes.
Wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
Pick it up while I'm laying down there, brother. It was a strip joint. So yeah, they absolutely started to unify as a team, and I think those stories don't get told with any regularity for obvious reasons in some cases. But Sweden was massively important. As were the 3,000 fans that traveled overseas to support the team. To a man, they will tell you those fans were instrumental in helping Team Canada get that victory in 72. It was about 2,700 fans, and the Canadian embassy in Moscow, there was a diplomat named Gary Smith. He's recently written a book called Ice War Diplomat. For anybody who wants all the stories behind the scenes, that's the book you need to get.
Oh, yeah.
Gary's a fantastic guy. He's become a good friend of mine. And he was actually the very first man to have a conversation about the Summit Series was Gary Smith. He's fluent in Russian. He was a diplomat in Moscow in the early 70s, working in our embassy. And he saw a story in the newspaper that from a Russian sports reporter that they're tired of beating up all the world's other amateur teams, and maybe it's time to try the best Canadians in the NHL. And so Gary phoned him up, and that's how the whole thing started. And Gary's book has a lot of backstories as well, Coach Frenchy, that I would recommend as well. You can get it online, get it delivered to Thailand or anywhere, and I think it would be a good read for
I will
for
definitely look about this for sure. Talking about him and talking about the fact he was over there, do you have any kind of this, because the security should be at the high level at some point for the fans, over the 3,000 and for the players, no?
Yeah, absolutely. There was one Canadian, it's a very famous story. Actually, he's a French Canadian as well. He's become a good friend of mine as well. His name is Pierre Plouffe.
Yeah, that's what I read this because I really study you before you come here. And you're absolutely right. You talk about Pierre Plouffe and you're you're absolutely right.
Well, he was the guy with the bugle. He was in the crowd with the bugle, and so the Russian security kept telling him, "Stop playing that bugle, stop playing it." And of course, he didn't. So they arrested him.
Wow.
They arrested him, took him to the gulag there, or whatever the hell. Like he thought he was going to Siberia. He didn't know So it was quite a mess there for a couple of days, but it's all documented online. He's been interviewed just in the last couple of months about this story. I think it's incredible. And many of the fans that went over, all of the players, any of the executives, coaches, they were all followed by the KGB.
Oh, wow.
Every one of them. They could not go anywhere without a tail. Rooms were bugged, phone calls in the middle of the night, all sorts of stealth things that were done, including some other crap. They stole, they brought over, they had food and beer and everything shipped over. It all went missing. Things like that. They screwed with us every single possibly way they could, including the officials for Game 8 were bought and paid for. The on-ice officials, Kampala, East German, and Bader, the Czech, they were paid for. And Game 8 itself has about like 5 subplots. The game almost didn't happen because it was supposed to be, Team Canada picked a Swedish ref who mysteriously came down with food poisoning. By the way, no one's seen this guy since in 50 years. But
really?
He came down with food poisoning, disappeared off the face of the earth. So they used the East German ref, and Harry Sinden, the head coach of Team Canada, said, "Screw you, we're not playing. We want the Swedish ref." Well, no, food poisoning. He's in the hospital. He's gone. And anyway, the game almost didn't happen. And then so they're making all the calls against us, including we're down 2 men a couple minutes in. Next thing you know, we're down 2-0. JP Parise threatened to decapitate the referee. He gets tossed out of the game. It was a huge commotion. Game delayed for 6-7 minutes. They called it fairly after that. And then the leads. Then you had the first fight in the series, where 2 guys dropped the gloves. Rod Gilbert and Mishikov, number 12 for the Soviets. You had that. Then you had the massive controversy when Cornouillet scored. And there was no goal light. and they rescue Eagleson from across the ice, and then you had the Henderson goal with 34 seconds to go. I mean, this is all just one game, let alone the whole series, let alone Sweden, let alone they flew to Czechoslovakia and played the Czechs 2 days later. I mean, the whole thing is just, you can't, it's just the most incredible month in hockey history. There was nothing like it before and nothing since, nor will there ever be again in our lifetime.
So we're almost at the end. I want to respect your time. Could you tell a little bit your relationship with those players? Because I saw many pictures you have with them, everything like this. And you have a special day happening today on the say 15 years ago. Can you just finishing this way?
Yeah, I'm as we're taping this, I'm not sure when you'll air it, but I'm on my way to Toronto later today. I'll be there today and tomorrow. I'll be with the guys tomorrow. I'll be attending the press conference tomorrow being September 28th. September 28th is the actual anniversary of Game 8. And in Toronto on September 28th, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens are playing an exhibition game, and the Team Canada members who are able to travel to Toronto are going to be introduced pregame, and then there's a little celebration after. So I'll be with the guys, and I have a couple of small things that I'll be speaking on there, doing there. So I'm going down there to do that, but I'm also going down there to be with them on this momentous occasion. This isn't going to happen again, Coach Frenchy. This is it, my friend. This is it. That's all for Team Canada 72. That from now on, it'll be just an anecdote and a footnote on September 28th, as it has been for many years. Anytime you hit 50th anniversary of anything, it's pretty special. And for something as significant in Canadian history as this is. So for me, it's twofold. I am going down there to do some things. I've got some radio shows and some other things I have to appear on. But I'm also going down to be with my friends and to celebrate with them. I was just a kid when they did it, but they've all become friends of mine since, and I'm really looking forward to seeing whoever can travel there.
Wow, what a great event happening to you for sure. And I know it's almost at the end, but I want to ask you this question because you did it, and he was not my favorite player because he played for Toronto, but he made the chant of my life because the team Canada win with Paul Anderson. You talk about the Hall of Famer. Can you explain a little bit more about Paul Anderson?
Yeah, well, he's not in the Hall of Fame, and that's really sad and tragic, but we don't have enough time for me to go into with you how he's been screwed over. There's a consortium of reasons and people behind the scenes that have conspired to keep him out, and it took me 20 years to realize that, but I realize now he's never getting in, and that's fine. I've moved on and from making efforts, and he has moved on. He never championed his own cause anyway. But I'll tell you something. That day, that series, I'm a hardcore Montreal Canadian fan, as I'm telling you. In 1972, the Toronto Maple Leafs are my arch enemy. Like, I want them to lose every single game. I want them to go 0-76, 0-78. I don't want them to win. After that series, I never felt that way again. I lost a lot of my hate that I had for the other teams and the players. And I always cheered for Montreal when they played Henderson or when they played Esposito or anybody else. I wanted Montreal to win, but I never felt the same that I did, and that carried forward. It carried forward going forward as well. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens had a hell of a rivalry with the Boston Bruins, especially, well, really forever. But in the 70s, it was so intense. In the late 70s, we played them. It seemed like every year, right? We played them in 77 in the final, beat them 4 straight. 78 final, beat them in 6 games. In that unbelievable 7-game semifinal in 79, 3 years in a row. I wanted to win. I was at many of those games at the Montreal Forum, but I didn't hate them. I didn't hate O'Reilly. I didn't hate Stan Jonathan because he won that fight against Pierre Bouchard. He won the fight fair and square. And Pierre, if he was on the line with us right now, he would tell you the same thing. They were going toe-to-toe. They switched hands, and Stan caught him and broke his nose. It's as simple as that. It's what happens in a fight. It can happen. And I don't hold any animosity towards Stan Jonathan for that. Pierre Bouchard has his name on the Stanley Cup. Stan Jonathan does not. And Pierre Bouchard was revered in Montreal, as was his father, who was a captain of the Montreal Canadiens, and he played with the Rocket. So, you know, the legacy of Bouchard is set. So I just lost the hate after 72. I just didn't hate those guys anymore, and I never have since. And it changed me as a fan and I think as a person.
You're absolutely right about this.
It really did.
Think about this, Liam. Like 50 years ago, the intensity between only 6 teams is only about, I don't know, like 120 players versus 700 players, where it's not like it is today, how it was so much hate each other and to unify all together. It's pretty much amazing when you think about this a little bit more deeper. This is really what you said, like the team in Sweden, what they're happening over there. That's pretty amazing. And then you're absolutely right. And it changed me. I'll be honest with you, changed me about Paul Anderson because he became my hero for many years. Whatever he was wearing, the Toronto Maple Leaf, you know, and for me, it was really a great time. But look, I know you have to go, but hopefully we can have you another time during the year number of the upcoming season. We would love to having you at some point. You have so many things you could talk, and we can be here forever. And I just want to express my gratitude about you because to give you time here at the Hockey National Show, but honestly, for what you bring at the game, what the people love the most, and you make an impact. And that's the most important thing. Everybody make an impact in life, and you maybe not realize what you are, what you did so far for over 40 years. So I just want to express to you, thank you for what you did and the world of the hockey.
Hey, Coach Frenchy, thank you, buddy. Those are really nice words, and I appreciate it very much. And I would love to join you again this season. Absolutely. You've got my coordinates now. I'll come on anytime and talk about the game and the Habs as a season or anything else you want in hockey. It would be my pleasure. So thank you for having me. 72 means a lot. I got my Team of the Century shirt on right now. I'll be bringing it down with me and some other Canadian stuff to wear over the next couple of days. And it's a big celebration, and I'm glad I had a couple minutes with you here to talk about it. So thanks for having me.
We really appreciate it. People can reach you is the best way, like I put at the bottom here, for your Twitter account, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok, although I never post, but you can reach me there. You can pretty much find me on most social media outlets. And yes, thank you, Coach Frenchy. That is my Twitter handle, and I answer every single person who messages me.
That'd be great. Have a safe trip. Enjoy your time over there. I can wait to see you until the next time. Have an amazing, great day, Mr. Liam.
Thank you very much, Coach Frenchy.
Thank you.
Take care, sir.